Good news, it's been a month, but I finally finished my one-shot, so let's talk about it. When we last left our players, they had just defeated a roper and were in a cavern with a bunch of money, a bunch of treasure chests and treasure and various gold coins, piles of money. After they defeated the roper, when they walked up and touched the money, they realized it was an illusion. The money was actually like piles of rocks, and the treasure chests that were there, once the illusion faded, was really old, scummy treasure chests that were full of nothing. So this was a trap, and they realized that it was a trap after they had set it off. Any kobold that was caught and interrogated and asked where all of the wealth, all the money was that they'd been stealing from the town, they were ordered to direct them there towards the trap. After that, my players decided to go back to the entrance and go left instead of right, and they found basically a quartermaster area where the kobolds had weapons and armor. So if they had lost a weapon or something during this whole whatever, if they wanted to try a different weapon, there were short swords and long swords and bows and arrows and crossbows, etc. They opted not to take anything because they had all of the equipment they wanted. So then they decided to come back into the cave and go south. They came across 6 kobolds. 2 were regular kobolds, 2 were kobold inventors from Volo's Guide to Monsters, and 2 were dragon shield kobolds. Now, the really cool thing about the kobold inventors is they have really low hit points, but they have all these little extra things they can do. They basically have like a sack of various objects that they can throw at you, like alchemist fire, green slime, which will eat away at your weapons and armor, a wasp's nest that just throws out a swarm of insects onto the playing field that does a bunch of damage, kind of attacking friend and foe alike. They even have a skunk in a cage strapped to their back that they can let go. And mechanically, how it works is you have your kobold inventor and you roll a d8 and you see what special attack he's going to do. And then that attack happens in the battle. So from a DM perspective, they're really, really fun. And this battle was awesome. So they took out the 2 regular kobolds pretty quickly because they're just regular kobolds. And the other 2 kobold inventors were hanging back and kind of doing damage from afar. One set down a skunk, another one threw a wasp nest and did a swarm of insects. One of them did the green slime, but missed. So there was a patch of green slime on the floor. And eventually they cleaned up all the kobolds, and then they asked me a really great question. My PC said, what do the kobold inventors have left over, and can we take it? And I hadn't even thought of this, so I love this idea. So they rummaged around the kobold inventors' little rucksack that they have, and they found another wasp nest, a green slime jar, an alchemist fire, and one of them still had the skunk on its back. So they took the skunk in a cage. And I thought this was really cool because it's going to set up and help them with the final boss battle against the dragon. So even though I wasn't intending on giving them these items, I think it was a lot of fun, and it added some random kind of moments to the fight. So yeah, let them have it. I mean, I thought that was really fun. So they took a bunch of random stuff from the kobold inventors. As they continued south, there was a left or right, and if they went right, they went to the Pride Rock area where the dragon was hanging out. Anytime tribute was demanded from the dragon was hanging out on that Pride Rock breathing fire, and the kobolds were running around trying to gather all of the stuff that the city was offering, that the town was giving them. For my players, I was hoping that they took it as this is the point of no return. You can see the city, you can go back to the city, or you can continue on and you're probably going to fight a dragon. They turned around and they walked down the corridor towards the dragon, which had a trap in it. And this is another situation where there was a trap, but none of my players really thought to roll to see if they find a trap. And because none of them actively said, I look for traps, or I look for anything, or I'd like to roll perception, they ran into the trap and they took 1d10 of damage if they failed a dex save, because the ceiling collapsed in. That was the trap. And I was thinking about this, and I actually talked about it with my players afterwards, that it would have been more fun to roll it as a skill challenge. So what if instead of just hoping that they look for traps, the challenge would work like this. Everybody would roll perception, and odds are somebody would get above a 12 or a 13, and I would say, you see several traps down this long hallway, and now we're going to do a skill challenge for how you get past these traps. It just seems like it would be more engaging for the players, and then there's less hoping from the dungeon master that they look for traps and punishing them for just kind of not thinking how you're thinking. Like, I don't like it when dungeon masters are just like, well, I'm going to punish you because you're not playing how I intended you to play. And I feel that just giving them that option of a skill challenge would be better. So that's, you could do it traditionally with just the regular traps how it is, or you could play it with the skill challenge. I'm going to say the skill challenge is probably going to be more fun. And then they finally came to the dragon. So there was a big red dragon with 2 dragon kobolds, and the monster in the monster in the monster manual is just a red dragon wormling. But you should know that this is a deadly encounter. Like, I did the math on Kobold Fight Club, and this is considered a deadly encounter for 5 level 3 players. So my players are all lined up really nice, and I tell them right from the get-go, we're going to, before we roll initiative, everybody do an intelligence saving throw. And I think about 4 out of 5 of them got the intelligence saving throw. And what it was is that it's like you see that same illusion magic that you saw on the money and stuff in that one room with the roper. You see that same illusion magic on the dragon. It looks like a big red dragon, but now that you're close enough, you see that it's kind of an illusion. And then we rolled initiative, and the dragon went first. And because they were all lined up in a nice, area, his cone of fire hit every single one of them. They all rolled dexterity saves and took quite a bit of damage starting the fight. I think the paladin had 1 hit point actually at the end of this flame breath. And then the player's turn. And so the player, I think the barbarian, he ran up there and hit the dragon with his 2-handed maul to kind of get past this illusion and see what it was. And then they realize as the illusion kind of fades away from this dragon that it is a dragon, but it's a tank. And this device, this like kobold made dragon tank, it still has wings and it's got like wheels, and then it has a dragon head that can breathe fire. My players, they could either attack the tank and try to destroy it, or they can try and get the pilots on the inside. And I'm really happy. They instantly were like, well, we should just need to take out the pilots. We don't necessarily need to take out the dragon. The cleric was up next, and she had a wasp nest, and she asked if she could throw the wasp nest somehow inside. And I said, it's going to be a high AC. It's going to be a high check. But if you roll high enough, you're going to be able to throw that wasp nest right down the dragon's throat and into the inside of the tank. She rolled an 18, which was awesome. And that's what happened. This wasp nest went straight down the dragon's throat, and it burst on the inside, and you could hear all of the kobolds in the inside screaming as they were getting stung by these swarm of bees. The hatches fly open, and a kobold sorcerer and a kobold dragon shield pop out of the top. So now we have 2 kobolds, a kobold sorcerer and a kobold dragon shield, and an unmanned tank on the field. The paladin let her skunk go, and the skunk ran over and sprayed one of the kobolds, and so he was paralyzed. It's not an actual paralyze, but it says in the Volo's Guide to Monsters that the skunk causes you to vomit and stuff, and you're basically out of the game for a minute. So it's treated like a paralyze. The ranger jumped on top of the tank and decided to climb on the inside to pilot it. Meanwhile, the rest of them are wailing on all of the kobolds on the outside. What happened during the night that really made the whole game for me was when the ranger went into the tank with the swarm of insects on the inside, and he cast Speak to Animals, and we checked, and a swarm of insects is considered tiny beasts, so he's able to speak to beasts, speak to animals. And he said, I want to be able to talk to these animals, and he rolled a persuasion check for them to leave. And it was high enough that I deemed that the bees just kind of, or the wasps, I should say. I keep getting bees and wasps confused. But the swarm of insects flew out of the dragon and escaped. He told them the way out of the cavern, and so they flew out to get out of the cavern. Meanwhile, he's rolling intelligence checks to kind of learn the controls and see if he can manipulate this. It came down to the kobold sorcerer was the only one left alive. And the paladin, you ran up and did a smite attack and did 20 points of damage. And I was like, I wanted to leave him alive so that the tank could take him out with a huge thing of fire. But at the same time, I was like, no, not for 20 points of damage. He had 5 hit points left. I can't super argue that he's still alive. So the paladin killed the sorcerer and the fight was over. This was a lot of fun, especially because of the extra things that they got. So they were able to throw some green slime on the tank to kind of dissolve a wheel to keep it from moving around. They were able to throw the wasp nest in to get those guys to exit the vehicle. and they were able to use the skunk to paralyze one of the other kobolds. So it was kind of fun. Like, the tools they gathered there directly affected the fight that they were going to do with the dragon. They found all of the treasure. It was behind the dragon a little further down the cave, so they found all the treasure. They decided to put all the treasure and the barrels of grain that they found inside the tank, which really, it's not that big, but I was like, it was the end of the night, and I'm like, okay, sure, you somehow figure out a way of getting these barrels of grain into the tank. They fly down off the top of the mountain, and we did some intelligence checks to see how well they maneuver and land safely. And they landed safely. All of the townspeople came out. Everybody was really excited that the adventurers had returned, and offered them half the gold that they had received. So returning the gold to the village then gave, like, I think it was 1,300 gold. The village then gave them 650 gold as thank you for taking care of the dragon on the mount. And it was really fun. The final bit of hilarity that happened is the chaotic neutral ranger decided he wanted to sell back the grain as opposed to give the grain back to the villagers. The lawful paladin hated this, and the two argued at the table for a solid 15 to 20 minutes while I just watched, until finally we did some insight checks and bluff checks here and there between the two of them to kind of settle the dispute, and the paladin sadly lost, and so the ranger got another 400 gold for selling back these barrels of grain to the people of Longsaddle. But all in all, I'm really excited for other people to run this and to hear what their exploits are. I'm going to revise it, and I'm filming this early, so I'm hoping that when I release it on Friday, I'll be able to put it down in the doobly-doo. So check the doobly-doo for this, but if it's not there, it will be shortly. I just have a really busy non-YouTube life at the moment, and so it's going to take me a bit of time to make it look a little polished, or maybe I'll have an unpolished version available for you guys. But let me know if you're going to run Dragon on the Mount. I had a lot of fun. My players said that they had a blast running it. So that is really all I have to say. I keep thinking there's something else that I need to say, but that's it. So thank you guys again for watching. And as always, I will see you all in the next video.